that is why I like to influence people and help them get through a situation that I had to go through. Let's get them through that quicker so they have a great experience and a better outcome.
Welcome to Under the Coverage.
During each episode, we interview people, sometimes it's just each other,
who spend their working days focused on health benefits and health care.
As consumers, we want the same thing you do.
We want the entire system to be less complicated.
Our guests share insights about how they navigate healthcare and the health benefits systems. I'm Jolene Myers.
And I'm Sarah Flusky.
And we're ready to lament,
complain,
empathize,
and maybe help a few people.
Today we are lucky to be joined by two guests. Todd is back with us to complete his hat trick, and he brought a guest with him from HealthJoy. Steph is a regional sales executive focused on employers in Georgia and Alabama. Prior to HealthJoy, Steph was a sales consultant for Paylocity and also managed the broker relationships ADP had in Atlanta. During Steph's tenure in sales, he helped HR executives reduce administrative burdens and companies retain and attract top talent. Steph was attracted to HealthJoy after having neck surgery in 2009. Looking back at all the complexities that came along with navigating a healthcare event, he can now positively impact others who might be going through what he did using the HealthJoy platform. Healthcare is very confusing, and Steph gets it. We're happy he's here today to shed some light on this complicated topic.
So welcome, Steph, to the podcast.
Thank you very much for having me. Appreciate it.
Thanks and Todd, welcome back for your hat trick, and thank you for bringing Steph to us.
Absolutely, absolutely. I can't think of anyone better I could have brought to the table today. So thank you, Steph.
Yeah.
Hey, too kind, Todd, too kind.
So let's start here. No member ever plans to become a patient dealing with a chronic or an urgent medical condition. And my hope is that everyone listening is well and they stay well. But imagining that that's not the case, the average consumer is not trained to shop for healthcare. A doctor knows best, right? So clinically, that might not be wrong. But as a consumer, I think there are a lot more options now to research cost and care outcomes. And I want to talk a little bit about that. Talk to me a little bit about, and you can say no here. Talk to me a little bit about your neck surgery and sort of what you experienced.
So after being in the dark and wondering the pain and the issues that I was experiencing and starting out that journey myself and saying, hey, maybe I need a chiropractor, right? And then going to a chiropractor and then telling me maybe I need to go to another doctor. It just caused confusion, right? I didn't have any direction where I wanted to go. I wasn't sure if that was the right course of action, right? Then I was second guessing myself of, like, do I need a chiropractor? Are they doing the damage? So I go to a neurologist, right? A neurologist sees me and says, you're fine. You're totally fine, right? You don't need to have an MRI. So I go back to a different chiropractor, and he says, I won't touch you until you go through that process, get an MRI, your primary care. So just having the ability to, again, we talk about experience. Starting out for me, that was a poor experience. When you have a poor experience, you don't want to do anything. I feel like you pull yourself back or you retract yourself into a cocoon and just say, hey, this is life. I will deal with it. In my opinion, nobody should have to deal with that, right? So finally, after my due diligence, right, researching neurologists, neurosurgeons, primary care doctors that I spend a lot of time, I finally get one. Right. I finally get a good one that sends me to a neurosurgeon that actually was able to get me that MRI and says, wow, you've got herniated discs that are actually fragmented. Like, what do we want to do here? Like, this is what I recommend, but here's what the course of action. So it literally took 3 years. It took 3 years of me doing my due diligence and doing all of that on my end. And the experience was terrible. And I think there's two things in life that I like: experience, and then there's outcomes, right? So being able to navigate that situation and help people go through a good experience and then have a good outcome. So that is why, I like to influence people and help them get through a situation that maybe they wouldn't, like that I had to go through. Let's get them through that quicker so they have a great experience and a better outcome.
What's so interesting to me, and Jolene, I feel like we've heard this a couple of times, is the importance of a primary care doctor that gets you, that works well for you. It's not to say that a primary care doctor that doesn't work for you doesn't work for other people, but somebody that sort of has the same vision of health and care and approach that works for you, the way they talk to you, that it's okay to shop for a primary care doctor who will vibe with you in a way that helps you feel heard and can direct care in a way that works for you. I feel like that's so important. We've gotten that from a lot of people, I think.
I think the challenging thing is just the way that the system's been built and set up is people don't know how to do that, and that's where our partnership with HealthJoy really comes to light, right? Like my mother, I always use this example. She will research the purchase of a vacuum cleaner for 2 years, right? But my dad goes and has his knee replaced. She doesn't know if this guy's done 1 knee replacement, 0 replacements, or 1,000, right? But they're just like, well, that's where the doctor said to go, And so, in Steph's situation, it's like you don't always find the best primary care that you blend with, right? And even if you do find a primary care, right, now you're seeing the PA, right? You're not even seeing the doctor, right? And so you just kind of get into this funnel and people really don't understand your needs or what you're trying to accomplish. Hey, by the way, you have these providers in your backyards that specialize, in this type of therapy, which we think could be matched up really well with what your conditions are and what you're trying to accomplish versus being in that wheel. And then all of a sudden we do see a claim, we do outreach. What's going on, Steph? What are you trying to accomplish? But by that time, Steph's been on the wheel for 6 months, right? Yeah,
you're right.
He still has to pick up the phone from one of our nurses, right? And he's like, why the hell is my health plan calling? Send the voicemail.
Yeah, you're right, Todd, because if I have to navigate that situation myself, you never know how many times I have to start that process over. Right. So again, it's saving time, and it also gives you the ability when you have an advocate to ask the questions on the front end that you want to ask, and then you have somebody else ask those questions for you, and then you get those answers quicker, and then you can get going where you need to be. So Absolutely.
But it's not only is it an awful experience for you, but you think about the plan sponsor, right? So the plan sponsor in a self-funded plan is going to be your employer, right? That's right. So now for 3 years, you're going to doctor's appointments, right? You're leaving work because you are just in this wheel of not getting anything accomplished. And every time you go into one of those doctor's offices, you're also incurring a claim, right? So you're out of work, you're costing money to the plan, and your outcomes aren't getting any better.
No, and you're not good at work. You're not good at home with your family, your kids. It can be very, very stressful. So it can, again, bleed out to other avenues.
Right. I have those days at home as well, and I'm not even sick.
Nope.
Well, not just the plan, Todd, but I think, in Steph's case, every time you go to the doctors, I'm in a high deductible plan. So every time you're going to a doctor's office trying to accomplish something, it's your own money. So it's not only your time. I mean, there's better ways to spend PTO, but there's also better ways to spend your own money. And if you'd had a better experience up front that didn't take you 3 years to get where you ended up, you would have gotten there faster. You could have used more PTO to coach more baseball games and all around maybe felt better sooner.
Right. Well, you bring up a good point, Sarah, because people on the high deductible plans, at some point, they're either A, going to get aggravated and just give up, but B, they might not be financially viable for them to continue to try and seek care and get solutions. So now you're just living with a condition that's probably progressively getting worse, right? Whereas you maybe could have been part of an MSK program, right? And you could have really solved your neck issues through at-home exercise, even doing something virtually and not missing any work. Whereas if something like that goes unmanaged, it's like, oh, wow, now you have herniated discs and you have to have surgery. You have to go under the knife, right? You're going to be out of work for 3 months. Oh, I don't have short-term disability. How am I going to feed my kids? So, there's a lot of variables, to that. But having something on the front end to help navigate that would avoid everything that we've just discussed.
Agreed. And kind of piggyback on that, Todd, I think that we have, as consumers, have always had the generalization that doctors know everything, right? And we as consumers, we don't want to question them, right? So having a concierge or the avenue to ask people questions where you don't feel uncomfortable, right? There are some doctors, and we've all sat in front of them, and then we've asked them questions, and they've given us that eye, like, why are you asking me that question? You're not supposed to be asking that question. I am, I have that MD after my name. You don't. Right. So I believe that everybody needs an advocate, my mother has told me this from day one, like if you go into the hospital, you need somebody right there to make sure things are going the way they should be. So again, there are, like you talk about Health Joy, right? We have that advocate. We have that ability for an individual to ask those questions, to find them out, have somebody else ask them, right? Let them get the eye or, is scolded for asking those questions. But again, hey, sometimes you have to challenge people, whether they have DO or MD after their name, because at the end of the day, that healthcare, you're paying for it.
Right.
It's some way, form or fashion, it's on you. So that's my stance on that.
Yeah, I agree with you, Steph, is that people sometimes are afraid to ask the question. But I think just as often as that, people don't know what they should be asking.
Right. You're exactly right.
Right. It's like, I would come home from a doctor's appointment. My wife is an RN, so she's a little bit smarter than me when it comes to this stuff, even in working in the business. She's like, well, did you ask this question? And I was like, well, no. Right. That's why she would never let me take the kids to their pediatrician by themselves. Because I would ask no questions and I probably wouldn't retain anything that they said. So, that's why we're a good team, I guess.
There you go. Right. My mom always said, write everything down you want to ask them and make sure you ask them. So we all forget things.
Exactly.
I think it's important to really hammer home, that shift in behavior. And we've mentioned this a few times on a few of the other podcasts. Just changing behavior is one of the hardest things, right? With human nature, but really kind of trying to own it and look into it and research it as much as you would when you're planning a vacation or researching, a kid's school or whatever. Really just taking a few minutes and understanding the language and how the process works can take you farther.
Yeah, for sure.
Well, and I think really for people that have a solution like Health Joy as a part of their plan, that almost prompts you to have a more consumer-driven mindset because of the way I think it helps you to use your benefits better. So a tool like that can help give you all the things in one place to be a consumer and not feel like, well, I shouldn't be questioning, do I need to have this done? Is this the place I have to go have it done? There's another avenue to do some of that research without feeling maybe contentious or like you're not educated enough to be asking, do I really need, I know you're the doctor, do I really need to have that surgery?
Right. And with proactive outreach, you're not relying on the member all the time to do that, right? Now with the proactive outreach, you can get ahead of that and you're putting that front and center of them, reminding them and then helping them and saying, hey, we can guide you through. We can guide you through this process. So that kind of takes that, okay, I've got some help here rather than them relying on it. Because again, we as consumers, we're not pros at navigating that. But when we have that proactive outreach, it really, really helps.
Well, thank you both for joining us. This was a great conversation. I think the more I learn, the more I realize I don't know. So I guess it's just a good thing to keep asking questions.
That's right. Just be a sponge and never stop absorbing.
Yeah. Well, maybe I'll bring Kelly with me to my next doctor's appointment, if that's okay, Todd.
Perfect. Well, thank you for your time, Steph. I know that you're busy. We appreciate you joining us here.
You bet. I really appreciate you guys having me.
This podcast was brought to you by Nova Healthcare Administrators.
Do you have a question or a situation you'd like advice about?
You can find us on Twitter at UNDR-The-Coverage.
If you're into email, you can reach us at podcast@novahealthcare.com.
Don't forget to leave a review, give us a like, or subscribe, but more importantly, share.
We'll find the insiders. You share it with the outsiders.